This is
turn yourself on, you're not on. We're this close we can't hear you. I think I got a green light. Thank you. And it's like, on, we're good now? Okay, I'll try not to yell at you. I have 3 kids and 3 grandkids, and I'm used to yelling. My kids are all older. I yell more at them now than I did when they were younger, probably. Just joking. I have to go home with one of them later. No, but we want to welcome you here tonight. This is such an important awareness event, and we just want to bring people from this area in and talk to you about something that those that are presenting tonight, it's very dear to us. And so we're going to be talking about human trafficking in this area. And I'm no longer living in Cornwall. I represent Beacon Bags, and I felt that I wanted to start building a relationship with our police services here in Cornwall, as well as victim services. And you might say, well, why do you want to be in Cornwall? Because when we started out doing bags for women and girls that were rescued from human trafficking. And we provide them over in the Leeds-Grenville area to the victim services and the police, and they give them to a girl when they get picked up. And so we just wanted to continue on with that. We started doing that in 2016, and we became a registered charity in 2020. And our goal, we have a board, we have a committee, and because I need it, we actually have a prayer team. And so we decided that through the years, we've learned that one of the things, and I'm going to leave that to the experts in a few moments to talk to you about, but one of the things that we've learned just walking with our police services and our victim services is that the missing link right now is an emergency shelter. So what happens is when the girls get picked up, sometimes they get taken to a hotel for a night or two, and it's not a good place for them. It's no one's fault. It's just that human trafficking has escalated so much that we just don't have anywhere to take them. We have some fantastic long-term care resources in Ontario, but we do not have a lot of things that we can, a lot of places that we can take them that first night. So for Beacon Bags has worked diligently, even through COVID, COVID-friendly, selling and doing whatever we could to raise funds. On this past week, a couple days ago, we met with a group of people that have a piece of property, And they are going to allow Beacon Bags to put a facility in there. And so that facility will be mainly for human trafficking. That won't be for anybody else, because what we're learning is human trafficking victims, and you'll also hear that probably tonight, sometimes the trauma that they're dealing with and the different things that they deal with, it's not saying it's any worse or any less, but it's different. And so sometimes they just need their own space to regroup and to kind of get connected, and we want to provide that. So we're going to open our first emergency shelter in Leeds and Grenville. And then we're going to, once we get a model, we will move this way and we will put another one. So we will also facilitate and be available to Eastern Ontario. This is why we're reaching out to your Cornwall Police as well as Victim Services to build a relationship so that when they have a girl, they know that they can trust that girl with us. So why would they send me a girl if they have no clue if I'm a crazy woman? Which, you know, some people would think I am. But mostly people think I'm pretty sane. But you know what I'm saying? Like, we want to build that relationship so that they know that they're sending that girl to a very safe place, and then we can help her. We would have access to a methadone doctor. We would have access to therapists. Victim Services has so much resources, and you'll see that out on their table. And so that's what we're doing in Cornwall, and that's why we feel it's so important, vitally, vitally important, for you as the public to be aware of what's happening. And so we don't want you to think, like I did when I started investigating this myself, I was appalled that human trafficking was happening over in another country. Because that's what I heard. It was over in another country. And I was appalled by that our women and girls, this was happening to them. And so when I started to learn more and I realized it's an issue in Canada, and then I started to realize it's an issue in Ontario, and then I realized it's right in our own backyards. And I said, I can't stick my head back in the sand and forget and pretend that this is not happening. And I know everybody can't do the same things that we do, but everybody can do something, and everybody can be aware. And so just so you think, and you're not ignorant like I was and thinking it's somewhere else, we want you to know that this is stuff that we deal with. And we want a safe place for those girls. When they come out of that they have a spot that's safe and people care about them. And so I do want to tell you that tonight, the first part of our session is going to be live streamed. So only the part where we're presenting will be live streamed. And so once that's done, I'll come up and I'll explain to you what's happening with snacks and different things. And when we come back after those snacks, we're going to have a question and answer. And we decided not to live stream that so that if you're more comfortable coming to the mic, you don't have to worry about that being live streamed. Also, if you're not comfortable at all coming to the mic, we want you to write down your question, pass it to one of us on the break, and one of us will just answer that question for you, and you don't need to worry about coming to mic, because we do have people that are just like mic scared. And so you can tell that's not me. But anyway, so I think the main thing that I want you to know tonight is that we're glad you're here because you're going to make a difference. And I would just like to invite Constable Steph, as well as Nick. Constable Steph is from the Cornwall Police Services, and Nick is from our Cornwall Victim Services. And I'm just so pleased to stand here with these two amazing women because they are awesome. And I appreciate them, and I appreciate what they do every single day. And so I just would like for you to welcome them, and they're going to share with us.
Thank you, Denise. So when she said mic scared, that'd be me. So my voice might crackle. I'm a little nervous, but once I get in my groove, I'll be okay. So like Denise said, my name is Detective Steph Castleman. I've been with Cornwall Police now. I'm going on 18 years. For the last 3 years, for the last 5 years, I was the domestic violence coordinator. And then 3 years ago, I took on myself to start targeting human trafficking. So across the province, really. Been working with the OPP. They have a joint task force, so we've been in contact because, let's face it, if it's happening here tonight, the next night it's happening in Brockville, and the next night it's happening in Kingston with the same victims. So we've been jointly working together and trying to put a stop to all this. Do you want to introduce yourself before we get going? Yeah, let's do that.
Hi, I'm Anik. I don't even know if I need a mic. I talk really loud. Oh, okay. I will tell some of my coworkers this because they always say I'm very loud. So I'm Anik. I'm the supervisor of client services here in Cornwall at Victim Services. I've been working there for combination of like 2 years, and then I also worked in another victim setting. So I've been helping victims of different kind of crimes for the past few years. Yeah, I basically supervise a few programs. I'll get into really what we do at the end, so I won't bore you right now with all those details. I will let Stephanie go and do her thing. Oh, now I'm talking.
So we work closely together, obviously. I'll come across a victim of human trafficking. I get in touch with Anik or any other members from Victim Services, and we work as a team because it takes a team, it takes a family to help these victims coming out of human trafficking. And yeah, so Anik and I are always in contact, or with Chantal sitting in the back who's watching us. We're always in contact to try and pull together and to help these people. So we'll get started. You can flip to the first slide. All right. So I'm going to try not to read from these slides, but just for the definition, I'd like to just kind of get it all in. So human trafficking, trafficking in person, is a recruitment, transportation, transfer, harboring, or receipt of a person through coercion, including threats, force, abduction, fraud, deception, abuse of power, or payment in exchange for the consent of a person having control over another person for the purpose of exploitation. Exploitation is the action or fact of treating someone unfairly in order to benefit from their work. What constitutes as exploitation under human trafficking is any form of sexual exploitation, forced labor, slavery, servitude, or removal of organs. Tonight, we're going to focus our attention on sex trafficking. So obviously, the types of human trafficking are domestic and international. Obviously, domestic is trafficking within the boundaries of our own country, and international is always where it's crossing at least one international border.
All right, now we're going to give a few facts about human trafficking. So fact number 1 is a person does not have to be moved across an international border to be considered human trafficking. So like Steph just said, it could be domestic, right? It can happen within Canadian borders, it can happen within Ontario to Quebec, or even here just in Cornwall. It doesn't have to be crossed within international borders. Fact number 2 would be physical force does not have to be used to qualify for human trafficking, right? So a lot of the times they're using emotional manipulation, things like that, coercion, and not actually physical violations. And then fact number 3, there does not have to be elements of physical restraint, physical force, or physical bondage when identifying a human trafficking situation. So a lot of the times we see, tattoos or things like that that identify the victims, but it doesn't always have to be the case. They can have nothing. Fact number 4 is victims of human, or did I just say that? Okay, fact number 4, victims of human trafficking do not all immediately ask for help or assistance and will not always identify as victims of human trafficking, right? So most of the time, these victims are coming to us and they have no idea that they've actually been trafficked until we explain to them what human trafficking actually consists of, because they've been so manipulated into thinking what they're doing is okay. So they don't even know what's going on, and they're actually victims of this human trafficking. Fact number 5 is human trafficking victims do not always come from situations of poverty or from small rural villages, right? They can come from anywhere, big cities like Toronto, Vancouver, things like that. Doesn't always have to come from a situation either of poverty. They can come from all diverse backgrounds. And then the last fact, human trafficking does not only occur in illegal underground industries, so it's happening in hotels, motels, condos, houses, things like that. It doesn't always have to be these illegal underground places that we're thinking. Good to go. All right, now for some statistics. So 90% of victims know who their trafficker are. So they know who's trafficking them from a prior situation. And then an average annual profit from each female trafficked in Canada is $280,800. So these victims are being reused and reused and reused, maybe sometimes up to 10 times a day working, right? They can be resold and resold and resold. They're very profitable. Worldwide profits from sex trafficking is $99 billion in the USA. 93% of Canadian trafficking victims come from Canada. So Canadian victims are being trafficked within Canada, right? 98% of sex trafficking, 98% of sex trafficking victims worldwide are women and girls. Accused human traffickers are most commonly between the ages of 18 and 24, so 36% of that. And then traffickers are between the ages of 25 and 34. So they're usually much older than the victims. The victims are usually younger, and we're seeing traffickers older than the victims. And then the majority of accused traffickers are males. So that's why we're going to refer a lot to her in this presentation, because that's mostly what we're working with. And 50% of victims are between the ages of 15 and 24, and then 25% are under the age of 15. Or 18, sorry. So we're seeing a lot of girls from the ages of 10, 11, 12 being trafficked. All right, I'll pass it over to Stephanie now.
Okay, so when we talk about human trafficking on the streets, it's called the business. And in the business, we have our traffickers, then we have our Johns, and then we have our victims, right? Next slide. So when we talk about, the Johns, a lot of the times the Johns are looking for intimacy, or they're looking for sex without intimacy, or a variety of both. They're looking to have that control. They're looking to have the excitement. What we noticed is a majority of sex buyers are married, like over 50% of them. Caucasian, over 50%. Males with high school diplomas, 88%. And hold more patriarchal views of women than non-sex buyers. So a man who pays for sexual services is a John. And then they have their sex trade worker clients. So who are the traffickers? It could be anyone. It could be a large organized crime group. It could be a family member. It could be a brother or sister. It could be a parent. Could be small groups of people trying to traffic women and girls, and the opportunistic individual. So that's where we're seeing a lot of it. We're seeing the individual who wants to make a lot of money, and this is the easy way. The drug dealers can sell the drugs, but they can only sell them once. Where the girls, when they have the girls, they can sell them over and over and over again, right? So this is what we're seeing a lot of. I'm just going to play a short video. This is Matthew Dieko. He was arrested and charged for human trafficking, and they did a quick presentation with him while he was incarcerated. And this is just the views of a trafficker.
There's a dangerous game being played in Toronto and across the country. Romeo pimps who promise love and security, then enslave girls as young as 12. Moved up and down highways, from hotel to hotel, and motel to motel. Matthew Dieko has played the game, and he knows it well. Charged with trafficking, kidnapping, assault, forcible confinement. He awaits trial.
Sex is a part of life. I think a woman, if she wants to make money off it, she shouldn't have to go to jail or somebody that's helping her. It's her life, it's her body. Why should anybody be getting in trouble? Why should the Johns be getting arrested because they bought a woman? Some people don't want a relationship. They just want to get what they want and go home. No strings attached, no relation, no feelings, no fighting, no quick business deal.
get a girl to fall in love with you and get a girl to be willing to do this?
It just happens. Like, most of these girls, like I said, they're broken. It's not hard. You just gotta answer their call. You get in there, you find the crack. Like, some are drugs, some are just, they need to hear I love you.
But if they just want someone to love them, this guy's not talking about loving her.
Oh, I know, but that's what she believes. It's the illusion. Be there for them. Tell them what they want to hear. And you tell them, well, we need to put money away. I'm going to do what I do. See, I'm putting my 50 in. You have to do your 50. So there's another way you can have sex with guys. But don't worry, I'm going to love you. You know, I'm going to go and sell drugs if that's what I'm doing on the side, or I'm going to be making money. I'll be there to take care of you. At the end of the night, you're home with me. Every girl's had that fantasy wedding in that house with a pink fence. You sell it to her. She'll do it.
Why will she do it?
You just sold her a dream. Some of these girls are broken. It fixes them.
What fixes them?
Knowing someone out there cares. The illusion of it, right? Me, I don't let that happen. Because I'm not going to sit and lie to them and say, oh, I love you. I don't. I love my money.
And would you call that being a pimp?
No, I don't know what you would call it. Not a pimp, a manager.
There are thousands of stories in our city, our province, and our country. The job of the Toronto Star investigative team is to dig deep, sometimes
So that's
uncomfortably
exactly
deep.
it. This is what we see when I've arrested a few traffickers and I interview them. This is basically what they're telling me, which is sad. And you'll notice on him, he had the tattoo that said pimp here. Not a lot of the times, but I would say a few times now I've seen girls branded with either their pimp's name or their street name, and it's visible. It's on their neck, it's on their wrist, it's somewhere that people can see it so that they know that they belong to somebody. So, go to the next slide. So behaviors of a trafficker, obviously jealous, controlling, and violent. We already mentioned before, we've noticed that they've been significantly older than the victims. They promise things too good to be true, but because they're either lacking it at home or they're searching for it or they think they can have a better life, they're drawn to it. They then engage the victims to engage in illegal activity. So they'll say, oh, just do this for me, please. And then this will happen, and I'll buy you this. So then they're convinced, and they ended up getting arrested instead of the trafficker getting arrested. Now the girls are getting arrested. And then they end up buying them expensive things to keep them in. And they say, oh, this is the life you could have. And this, if you stay with me, this will happen. They're very pushing, demanding about sex. Again, if you want this, then you have to have sex to get that. Or you need to do this. If you want your drugs, you need to have sex with this person. Encourages inappropriate sexual behaviors. Oftentimes you'll see the traffickers or the pimps, they'll buy the sex toys for their victims, and they'll tell them, you need to use this tonight. And they're very open about their financial matters. They like to flaunt their money, but they don't like to hand over their money. So what we're seeing a lot is the victims are going in, they're going to work for the night, but then they have to hand over all their cash. It starts off 50-50. We're going to do this 50-50. And then not long after, they're handing over all their money. And they have them, because they'll threaten their family and say, if you don't do this, we'll kill your family. And if you don't do this, we'll out you so everyone knows what you're doing, and we'll make something up. So a lot of the risk factors, we're noticing a lot of these victims are extremely vulnerable, low intellectual functioning, poor school success, inadequate social skills. There's already been sexual abuse in the home, so they've already experienced it. Between the ages of 10 and 17. I haven't had any under the age of 15 here in Cornwall, but it's not to say it's not happening. Neglect, again, either from family, friends, they're at school, they're loners, they don't have any friends, or so they're seeking that, they're looking for that. History of physical abuse at home, First Nations women, youth and children, migrants and new immigrants. So we've had recent cases where traffickers are going to the asylum seekers that are now here in town and are preying on them because they're extremely vulnerable. They want to get citizenship here. So they're going to say, oh, I'm going to front the money and we're going to help you get all that, but you're going to have to do this for us. Being without caring adult supervision, I've touched on that. Exposure to drugs and alcohol. A lot of times what's happening is the victims might start out not being addicted to drugs and alcohol, but let's face it, to be able to do this night in and night out, they're going to get addicted because now they need to numb their pain. So that's when they start using, and then they become dependent on it. And then their traffickers are like, well, I can supply that for you, but you're going to have to do this. And they're doing it because they're drug sick and they need their fix. So it's really sad. And children are especially at risk. So indicators of human trafficking, it doesn't show very well on that slide, but if you're out and you see, or even for us, like we tell a lot of our officers, keep this in mind when you're on a call, bruising and injury, like I mentioned, tattoos, the branding. They're not dressed appropriately for the weather. Potentially, we're telling our officers, if you pull over a car and there's a girl in the passenger seat and she's in lingerie, you might want to start asking some questions. Or she doesn't have any IDs on her. Like, who has her ID? Does she know what town she's in? And I'll get into these questions more after, where we're asking our officers what to point out and what questions to ask our victims. So, and then to try and just determine, hey, is this potentially a victim of human trafficking? If it is, they send it up to me, and then I get in touch with them and try and show face. So, other indicators obviously are substance abuse, like I mentioned earlier. They're inconsistent in their stories because the traffickers have told them what to say, but if you get off that path, they don't know what to say anymore because they had this to follow, and if you keep talking, they're like, oh, what do we say? So, you can flip. So this was, I just put this up here. This was one of the branding where a gentleman was charged for human trafficking, and that was the branding on the back of the girl's neck. You can switch. And the cycle of recruitment, we have the recruitment, we have the grooming, and then the exploitation. So the recruitment often, you can go to the next slide. The recruitment, we've noticed more times than none, is happening on social media. Snapchat, TikTok, Instagram, OnlyFans. Let's face it, social media is a disaster, and I wish we didn't have it. And I'm terrified for my kids to grow up because it is, not only is it for human trafficking, but for bullying and everything else. But we're honestly, most times, my trafficking girls are recruited on social media. And it might start off where they want to be independent and they're just a sex worker and they want to work for themselves. And all of a sudden, a trafficker responds to her ad and then says, yeah, guess what? You're now going to work for me. Or they could be recruited by an acquaintance. So we're seeing that often too. And unfortunately, sometimes it could be from a safe house. You know, they're going to a safe house and then there's a girl working in there and says, yeah, come to this house with me. We're gonna go drink tonight. So they go drink and then all of a sudden, now you're gonna work for me. You're gonna work for my trafficker. And then that, I'll get into the terms, but that girl's called bottom bitch. She's gonna start recruiting other girls to say, hey, you're gonna work for me. Sometimes it's the parents exploiting the children. And recruitment abroad by someone they know and trust. Go to the next one. So the grooming stage, we talked about this earlier. So they want the victims to feel loved. They want them to give them everything that they didn't have or the things that they wanted, and they suck them in because, let's face it, they don't have a job or they have low self-esteem. They don't have a shelter over their head, so they're like, yeah, we can give you one. Or they do have a shelter over their head, but sometimes teenage girls think the grass is greener on the other side, so they're like, hey, you know, he's going to give me this, so I'm going to go there. But unfortunately, that's how it starts. But then that's how the whole grooming and recruitment starts. And exactly, victims quickly identify their pimps as their boyfriend. A lot of the time it starts as their boyfriend, but they quickly figure out that that's not the case, and they got lots of girlfriends. You can go to the next slide. So again, exploitation stage. Like I mentioned, they owe a debt. So now they have to work for them, threatens the family. They either take or destroy their property, like their IDs, passports, health cards, license, student cards. They take ownership of that. They don't let them have any of that. Physical abuse, so if they don't comply, they beat on them. Emotional abuse, sexual violence. Isolation from friends and family, lots of times. And that's where we're noticing it, is the families are calling in and say, listen, I believe that my family member is involved in this. We used to be close. She never talks to us anymore. She met this guy, and it's like he won't let her talk to us. Sometimes it's just boyfriend and girlfriend or husband and wife, but most times it's because that other things are happening and he's not letting her discuss it. And exactly, extreme control over the victim. So methods of control, we have instill fear, control basic needs, fuel feelings of shame and guilt. So they even have to ask for permission to eat, to use the washroom. A lot of times they'll say, okay, you're going to do these 2 tricks. Sorry, I'm using the terms, but you're going to do these 2 calls where you're going to have sex with these 2 men, then I'll give you some food. If you don't, then I don't get you any food. And they don't have any money, so they have to do it because that's the only way they're going to eat. Or you got to do this and I'll give you your next hit. So then they got to do it because they're dope sick, so they need to do this. They isolate them. They threaten family members, like I mentioned. And then there's trauma bond. It happens when a buyer uses manipulation tactics and cycles of abuse to make the victim feel dependent on them for care, validation, causing a strong attachment or a bond. So marketing and victims. So mostly moved online. We have Leo's List. We have Cornwall Sort Lists. We have Oh Baby. I could go on. The list goes on of websites that girls are posting themselves, or their traffickers are posting them for sex. And we pick out little details in each ad that we know, okay, this girl's being trafficked, or this girl could be independent, but let's meet them. So, yeah, Leo's List, escort services, and that's what I mentioned. So we'll often see that they're available 24/7. There's different emojis that mean different things. So what we do is I'll do a human trafficking blitz, and what we'll do is respond to ads so that I can show face. Because it takes about 6 interactions with these girls before they actually come out of the game. And so that one instance, if someone can just touch base with the girl for one time and then say, hey, there's help out there. This is where you can reach out to help. And then hopefully the next time, hey, there's help out there. And then eventually they will reach out for help. So what I do is I respond to ads. I show up to hotel rooms. I show face to these girls. I say, hey, I'm here to help. Most times they'll say they're independent. I'll give them, if they want it, a go bag, because most times they don't have any clothes. I'll explain what's in here after. And I give them a card and say, if you want out of this game, I'm your out. Whether you want to go through the criminal process or not, because some girls don't want to go through court in 2 years from now. They want to out of the game and get better. So I say, I can do that. I can get you out of the game. I can get you help with the help of Victim Services and all the other agencies that are out here helping. We can get you out, but you need to call us. So, and we've been very successful over the last 2 years in doing that. So, And then, yeah, the slang bottom bitch, like I explained, she's the girl that's working for the trafficker. So he doesn't want to be identified. He doesn't want anyone to know who he is. So he's going to have this bottom bitch run his show, run his girls. And she's going to drive them to their meets, and she's going to collect the money, and then she's going to report back to the pimp. The game is a term used to refer to the commercial sex trade. Track, the area of town in the city where sex trade workers solicit customers, and turns a trick is when they go and do their sexual exchanges. So this slide is what I've asked a lot of our officers, just to kind of, if they suspect a victim of human trafficking, just kind of go through these questions or try and like ask them these questions, and then they'll get, like if they're getting that hunch that, hey, that maybe this is a victim of human trafficking, and they've asked a few, and then they're like, the red flags are coming up, but the victim doesn't want to come forward, at least they can bring this back to me and say, hey, Steph, this is what we have, this is who we think. So then, and I try and get them to get a phone number so at least I can meet these girls off site, not dressed like this most of the time, nor most of the time I have jeans and a sweatshirt on, go meet them and say, hey, if you want out, I'm your out. Or if you need help in a week from now, this is my phone number, this is my cell number, you call me. So these are the questions that I've asked. It's what's their address history? Because most times they don't have it. They don't even know where they are. They don't even know what city they're in. Do they know the area? Who has their ID? What's their immigration status? How are they making a living? How much are they making? And how much money do they have on them? Most times it's none. What's their friend or boyfriend's name? And what's he doing in the city? What's his address? Do they have a cell phone? And how do they get around? Next slide. And then this one's what to look for on a call. This is also what I've asked the officers to do. 1 or 2 more girls in an apartment or in a hotel room. Lots of Kleenex, paper towels, baby wipes, creams, sex toys, hardly any food. Again, no identification. Where they live, or they'll say that they're in town visiting their boyfriend. And how do they look? Because most times they look very unhealthy. They're super skinny. They just don't look like they've eaten for days. And then, if I get a victim, I call it Nick.
And I'm a Nick. All right, that was a lot of information for you guys. So if you guys want to take a deep breath or maybe shake it off, that was a lot. So just take a breath. It's okay. There is services out there. So I work at Victim Services. So basically, it's a nonprofit organization dedicated to providing support to individuals who have been victimized by a result of crime or tragic circumstance. Oh, you can change the slide, by the way. So we have 6 core programs at our office here in Cornwall. Different victim services may offer different programs, but this is what we offer here in Cornwall. So we have the Victim Crisis Assistance Ontario. I'll name these and then I'm going to go into details into every single one of them. Then we have our Victim Quick Response Program. We have our Family Court Support Program. We have our After Hours Volunteer Crisis Response Program. Then our newest program, our Internet Child Exploitation Counseling Program, as well as our Mobile Tracking Device Program. Thank you. So basically, our main focus and our main program is the Victim Crisis Assistance Ontario program. So this is a program where we have 2 caseworkers who basically provide assistance to individuals who are affected by crime and tragic circumstance in a really client-centered way. So we work with partnership with police, with community resources, and other emergency services to really help these individuals navigate the crisis that they're in, right? The immediate crisis that they're in. And we all know that when you're in this initial phase of a crisis, it can be very stressful and it can be very overwhelming. So we can help with a multitude of things. Emotional support, so just being that listening ear for them, right? Most of the time they don't have anywhere to go, they have nowhere to talk to. So just listening, right? Providing an open ear, providing just that safe space to talk. Then we can do referrals and resources, so we do a lot of that. So provide resources to, mental health, anything kind of, whatever and anything we can find as a resource in our community, we're gonna try to get them that resource. And then referrals, so we can refer them to social housing, unemployment, anything that we can refer these individuals to help them in the crisis, we're going to try to do that. And then safety planning. So we're going to do comprehensive safety plans based on these individual needs, right? So depending on kind of where they're coming from, what stage they're at, we're going to help them. So if they're trying to leave a trafficking situation, maybe we'll help them, come up with a plan on what to take, where to go, things like that. If they're coming out of a domestic violence situation, if they're still in the home with the abuser, things like that. And then we're going to do needs assessments. So really figure out what these individuals' needs, what they're missing, and what they want, right? Then we're going to do advocacy. We're going to educate. So like I said and Stephanie said, a lot of the times these girls have no idea they're even being trafficked, right? They've been so manipulated by their abuser, by their pimps, by their trafficker, that they don't know. So really taking the time and educating these victims on what's going on. And also just advocating for them at different programs, things like that. And then practical assistance. So things like helping them make a phone call, really anything and anything we can help them with, we will try to help them with. And then client follow-up. So a lot of the time we work with individuals who just like to talk about something and want to follow up in a couple weeks. So things like victims of sudden deaths, suicide, things like that. So we're going to follow up with them in a couple weeks to see how things are going, see how they're doing. Again, giving them that safe space to talk. And then we're going to assess eligibility and apply to Victim Quick Response Program when necessary. So that brings me into our second program. Our VQRP is our Victim Quick Response Program. So this is a program funded by the Ontario government that really helps out those victims of really violent crimes. So those victims that require immediate assistance that don't have the help. So let's say they need a counseling. They have no money to access counseling. One certain circumstance, we're able to actually help them acquire counseling. If they're in a home that's unsafe, we can actually help with some of like safety measures. So putting up contact alarms, bars on their window, giving them personal alarms, transporting them to like safe accommodations, things like that, we have the funding for. Again, this is a really last resort program. So it really comes down to individuals who have no other means but to come to us and we can help them. So different situations where we can help with this program. It's not everyone, unfortunately. So victims of attempted to commit murder, child abuse, criminal harassment, elder abuse, hate crime, historical child sexual abuse, homicide, human trafficking, intimate partner violence, non-consensual distribution of intimate images, sexual assault, serious assault, I need my glasses, and voyeurism, as well as tragic circumstances, so things like suicide cleanups. And then the Ontario government noticed, we have these human trafficking victims, but they have super different needs, like very unique needs compared to these general victims, right? Like Steph said, they're unique, they're complex, and they're coming to us with needs that maybe other victims do not have. So we can actually help with a variety of things. So like Steph was mentioning, any tattoo removal. So we can actually help to remove the tattoo. So we can pay them, or pay the person that removes the tattoos, $2,000. So a lot of the times, they have this tattoo with their pimp's name on it, their identification, things like that. We can actually help them to get that removed, right? That's a fresh start for them. And then accommodations. So a lot of the times they're coming to us and they're in danger, right? Like Steph said, the pimps have threatened their family, their friends, their animals, anything and everything, and they're terrified. So let's say shelters in our community are full. We can actually pay for them to have a hotel room up to $150 a day, up to $2,100. So this is really nice. It gives us kind of like a little bit of time to find appropriate shelter for these victims. Counseling, like I mentioned, we can actually give up to $2,000 for them to get like privatized counseling. Of course, we're not paying them the $2,000. We're giving it directly to the counselor. Residential treatment. So we can actually pay $20,000 for these victims of human trafficking to go to treatment and to get clean. Because like Steph mentioned, a lot of these victims are actually dependent on substance abuse, right? They're addicted to drugs. They need help. So what's the first thing they need to do? They need to go to treatment before we can help them with anything else. So this is a great thing. And then we have replacement of government documents, right? So Steph's finding these girls most of the time with no ID, nothing at all, no driver's license, no health card, no birth certificate. So we can actually apply and pay for it to get them new documentation. So they become a person again, right? Basic necessities. So again, like Steph said, most of the time they have nothing. Nothing. These traffickers have taken everything from them. So we can pay for them to get, toothbrush, toothpaste, conditioner, shampoo, shaving creams, razors, pads, things like that that they just don't have anymore. And then, so Cornwall Police, in partnership with Victim Services, has worked really closely over the years to help several victims and survivors of human trafficking. So we've worked in partnership, and we've been very successful at helping these victims get through this.
So also, after the residential treatment, we're finding most times it's 30 days. Sometimes it's not enough. So if they tell us we need more time, we do have places that they can go for like a year, and it's called a reset program. But they have to be willing to do that. And we luckily have a few girls that have gone and are there now for the next year to get better. So that's another program that is super helpful for us.
Because most of the time, 30 days is enough, right? They're coming back, they have nothing. So it's really good to do like that transitional housing, which we don't have. So we can also pay for some of that, depending on the specifics of the situation. Okay, now our Family Court Support Worker Program. So this is a program we have that's kind of Ontario-wide, but we service the area of Cornwall, Stormont, Dundas, Glengarry, Akwesasne, and Prescott Russell. So it's for women and men who are going through a domestic violence relationship and are navigating the family court process, right? So we're seeing a lot of the times that victims are being re-victimized throughout this family court process. So we're really trying to enhance client safety by reducing the risk of further violence. So supporting them through the process, helping them with safety planning, things like that, creating a safe space so they don't get re-victimized when they're going through these family processes, which can be super lengthy and painful. And then we can improve access to services and supports. So our family court support worker really helps with accessing legal aid, finding a lawyer, even though that is challenging, who accept legal aid applications, supporting them through the process, even just calling them, following up with them after court, so these people can debrief on what happened. They have a safe space to talk, right? Okay, next slide. And then we have our after-hours immediate crisis intervention support and referral. So this is our 24/7 program. So 24/7 immediate telephone assistance. So we have an after-hours crisis line that only police and emergency services can access. So police, Cornwall Police, OPP, and then ambulance and fire. So they can call the line, and there will somebody from our agency that will answer the phone any time of day and be able to provide things like action planning, safety planning, making sure they're safe for the night until our staff, can get there and make like a full needs assessment and comprehensive plan for them. So yeah, we have 2 after-hours workers that work on a rotational basis. So our staff work from 8:30 to 4:30, and then after that we always have somebody on call, as well as volunteers that are trained trauma and just good crisis responders that can help you if you have a crime, or you're in a tragic circumstance, or you're in a crisis, things like that. So if you call the line, you can't call the line, but if you call police and police are like, yeah, I think we should call victim services, they can call us and they can filter that communication between the two of us.
So I can say for the 24-hour response, I've had numerous times victims call me at 2 o'clock in the morning and say, we're in crisis, this is where we are, we need help, where can I go? So I pick up the phone, I call the after hours, and I say, okay, where is there a safe bed for her? So they help me so that I'm not the only one in the middle of the night trying to call around to the different housing places, either Maison Baldwin or Interlude, and if they're all full, Naomi House. And then if they have an open spot, Victim Services will get them a taxi to these locations to the safe place. And if we can't get into a safe house, then we look at other options, such as a hotel if we have to, just to get them out of their crisis at the immediate time.
something else I also forgot to mention with the VQRP is we can actually pay for transportation to safe accommodations. So a lot of the time, Steph is bringing a victim, or one of the Cornwall police are bringing victims to our office, and they don't have any way of paying to get to shelters, right? So we can actually facilitate that through a taxi company in Cornwall that we have a partnership with. And then we can also pay for these girls to get to methadone every day, to get to counseling. So a lot of them are doing the CARE program in Cornwall, withdrawal management, things like that. And we can actually pay for them to get to and from. So it's a little bit easier on them, right? And then our newest program that we just acquired is the Internet Child Exploitation Counseling Program. So this is a program of counseling referral and funding program established in 2010 by MAG, so Ministry of Attorney General. That was then taken over by MCCSS, so Ministry of Children, Community and Social Services, and has now since April 1st been administered by Victim Services here in Cornwall. So it's actually a counseling thing that goes all through Ontario. So we facilitate counseling for all victims of Ontario that have been exploited through the internet. So the program provides short-term funding and coordinates referrals to access counseling services to children and youth through the province of Ontario who have been exploited, right? Who have been exploited through the internet or technology, not necessarily the internet, so just technology through text. Doesn't necessarily have to be through Facebook or Google or whatever the kids are using these days. And then the services are available in French and English. So for these youth and these children that have been exploited, they can actually access up to $1,500 of counseling. And then their family members that also have supported them through this, who've been affected by it, can also get up to $1,000 in counseling as well. Because we're seeing a lot of the times there's no available counseling for free in Cornwall, right? You're trying to get counseling, you're put on wait lists, So this is really a nice thing to do for these victims to be able to access counseling right away. Okay, and then the mobile tracking system. So this is a unique program that we have here in Cornwall, thanks to our lovely partnership with Cornwall Police and OPP. So basically what it is, it's a GPS monitoring device. It's like a little panic button. It looks like almost a pager, and there's an SOS button on it, and it gets, so if the victim presses the button, it gets alerted right away to Cornwall Police or OPP, whatever region they're in, and as soon as the police detachment get this notification, they can send police officers right away to that call because they have tracking on these devices, so they can go right away to where they're located. So. Yeah, exactly. At that time, at that live time. And then if they're moving, they can see where they're moving, things like that. So it's really great for our high-risk victims of human trafficking, of domestic violence, really criminal harassment, stalking, things like that. We're mostly using it right now for a lot of our human trafficking victims, right? It's perfect. They can carry them with it, and they can go anywhere. They can go in town, blah, blah, blah. And there's always something safe for them to press in case they get put into this violent situation again. And I think that's it. Oh, you got one more.
So we also, I met a lovely lady, her name is Kelly Beal. She works for Justice Ontario, and she can be a huge resource to victims and family. So if a family member if a family has a family member who's a victim of human trafficking, Kelly Beal will come down here. She is from Belleville, Toronto area. She will come down here. She will advocate for the family. If the victim does not want charges laid, she will still go to the courthouse and get a restraining order on the trafficker. So then they have conditions on a restraining order to not be in contact with the family or the victim or so on and so forth, whatever they think could help them without going through the criminal process. And like I said, she'll come down here, do everything for us. She just meets with the family and says, okay, what do you guys want? Okay, I'll go to the courthouse and I'll get this. And she's amazing. So if you know someone who's going through this, doesn't want to come forward in regards to going through the criminal process, but still wants some form of security, that is another option as well. So yeah, that's it for our presentation.
You were going to show them what's in the bag. Do you want to do that?
Okay. Oh yeah, I was going to show you what was in the bag. So if I come across, or just this past weekend, I had a victim call me in crisis saying, I've been living on the streets, I have nothing, I have no clothes, I haven't eaten in 2 days, I need some female products. So I came into town and got her one of these. We made up these bags. So it has a little something just to make them feel a little better, because sometimes they're just in lingerie and they have nothing to call their own. So we've created these bags. There's obviously a teddy bear, because teddy bears just make you feel good. And then we got a bag full of feminine products, toothpaste, dental floss, hand sanitizer. There's condoms in there, because we like to think that they're going to keep safe. Nice warm blanket. Most times there'll be gift cards in here for food. So there was a Tim Hortons gift card in here and a McDonald's one, but I gave it out this weekend, so I just haven't replenished it. Some comfy socks. It's just some pamphlets in regards to human trafficking, and because sometimes they're like, no, that's not happening to me. This isn't trafficking. And then they start reading these and they're like, check, 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 and they're like, oh wow, this is actually happening. This is me, So just some comfy clothes, some, baggy or comfy clothes. We got pants, a sweater, a t-shirt. We have a hairbrush, some soap, full-size shampoo and conditioner, because let's face it, those travel ones, you use them once and then they're gone. And then a notebook, so they can make little notes, because it's theirs. Then they feel like this is mine, and I can tell my story in here if I want to, or I can unload in here if I want to, and it'll be mine. So this is what we do.
I have so much respect for these women that I can hardly talk right now. They just, I know Chantel's at the back as well, and she's not saying too much tonight, but she runs the team of victim services, and I know that they do such a fantastic job. I met them. I think we were supposed to meet for maybe 45 minutes. I think 3 hours later, we're like, I gotta go. And it was just amazing sitting with them and with Constable Steph. I have so much respect for them. And you know what, really, we need to support them. They're to be applauded for what they do. And I mean, if you are here and you pray, I'm pretty sure they would not turn that down either. So. I just want to, before we break, we are going to take a break now in a few moments. Before we do that, I would really, really like to say thank you to Cornwall Pentecostal Church for opening up their church tonight for us and for providing this venue for us. Also for Serge, who was so gracious to come and run the mic system and do our live stream. And so this part of it will be live streamed. And if you want to find it on the website and you want to share it because you think somebody that you know would benefit from hearing some of the things that these two ladies have spoken this evening, then please find them and do that. I'd also like to say a big, big thank you, and I know these ladies are on their way out the door right now, but the Knox St. Paul's ladies have provided our snacks for this evening, and we just want to say thank you to them because we feel like that was a pretty big thing for them to come forward and ask and offer to do that for us as well. So I just want to say thank you to Victim Services and to the police for coming and being part of this. I mean, they didn't know who I was when I approached them, but we've just connected, and I'm so happy about that. So we're going to dismiss. Here's what you need to know. We're not going to dismiss. We're going out for a snack. If you bring food back into this room and you make a mess, you're the one that's staying behind and vacuuming, because I'm not. I've been up since 5 o'clock and I worked all day. So we're not doing that, right? We're just going to stay. I'm just joking. Well, I'm not kind of, sort of. I'm just saying in a very nice way, I'm saying to you, please take your snack out in the other room in the fellowship hall, and we're going to have a snack there. And I'm thinking it's 7:28. If we came back for 7:45, we can stay on track for being done for sure by 8:30. That sound good? So she's going to give you a ticket if you make a mess.
So I just wanted to mention this. A lot of people say, hey, is human trafficking actually happening in Cornwall? And obviously I'm up here because it is. But I didn't want to give exact numbers, but just in 2022, we have 32 incidents that have identified as human trafficking in Cornwall. A lot of them don't get classified as human trafficking. They get classified as a domestic or whatever else, and I'm trying to put a stop to that and get it all reorganized. But 32 of them in 2022. And in the last 3 years, we've helped over 130 victims of human trafficking. So it's happening here. So if you see it or you suspect it, don't be afraid to even approach somebody or come forward, give a name so that someone can help this person.
So go for your snack and then try to, well, I'll call you at 1:45. So we're going to come back in here for 7:45, and we're going to have it set up so that you can come and ask questions. If you're shy and you do not want to approach the mic, please write it on a piece of paper so that we can read it. Thank you.
Thank you for doing something in Leeds, Grenville. I lived in Gananoque for years.
Okay.
But I did some work through the Salvation Army in North Kingston. And so Cornwall's my hometown. I just moved back here. And I'm talking to Steph and some of the groups about a certain initiative that I do. But anyways, I am so glad that, because there's nothing in that world. And when we were looking for shelters for women that needed a place for overnight, we did have some hotels, as you said.
Is there, but
But
they're like, again, they only
Rockville
have
had
10
all the
beds.
spaces,
Yeah.
and there was no
Exactly.
place. Some of the hoteliers, but that doesn't come with somebody that can talk to them.
No, they get up at 2 in the morning.
That's right. That's
Right?
right.
I
And you
know.
know, I wasn't. I mean, I'm a former principal and I have some training, but I'm not. That's not my job. That's not what I did.
No.
So, yay! I know you're going to be focused on this particular group, but yay!
Yeah.
Something.
Something. Yeah.
Thank
good.
you.
And I just, a few weeks ago, I went before all the mayors of the United Counties and I talked to them. And they admitted to me, like, they said, we get in here, because there's 10, right? 10
Yeah.
mayors. They said, we get in here, we talk about homelessness, it's important. We talk about people without food, important. But we don't talk about human trafficking. So my next one will be there now. I've done some small ones there, but I'll do a big one like that now over there.
But hell yeah!
show.
Of course, it's happening in
They
this
said,
area.
we don't know. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm about to inform
Fine.
you. I'm not the expert, although I could do that presentation. But when they hear it from them,
Those ladies are
They hear
dynamite. I know Stephanie,
they're
but
amazing.
Yeah.
They're amazing.
and how great they work together,
That's what I love.
which is so
I love
great.
that they work so well
Yeah.
together, because it's not always like that.
And it's obvious that they can
Yeah.
work well.
Oh,
As soon as
so
they start,
obvious.
yeah,
Yeah, 100%.
just great. Yeah, so happy to see
I
that.
know. What's your name?
I'm Deb Wood. I work on a thing called Purple Posse. I worked out of the north end of Kingston.
Okay.
And I worked out of the Salvation Army there. I was starting, I taught literacy to a lot of women.
You were the lady. Did I know you were coming tonight? Did you talk to me about that?
I talked to Chantel of Victim Services.
Okay.
I've phoned a couple, I've just phoned a couple of people just now, just in the last
Okay.
couple of days.
Yeah, okay. I feel like I knew. And I'm wondering, so that's good. I'm glad you introduced
Well,
yourself.
anyways, I'm, because
Yeah.
I want to do it here. We
Yeah.
made something called a safety card
Yes.
in Kingston.
Yes.
And that worked really well because we did workshops. Well, I was teaching literacy and all my women were coming in,
Yeah.
beat up and everything,
Yeah,
of
yeah.
course. And they kept saying, well, we can't come to class. And, and so the Tina, the pastor there, she was so cool. I mean, not very Salvation Army-ish. She was like, she was great. But anyways, we said, well, crap, we've got to do something about this. It's just not, so we got people to come in to talk to the women. And then all the women in my class and their friends were saying, well, we can't keep all this information at home because if we do, we're going to get beat up. But when we need help, when we're ready to leave or whatever.
Yeah.
So the women with me made like a little card the size of a business card that they could hide in their sock or whatever that had the instant numbers to get somebody to take them to a place where they could stay overnight to get the services. So we put 4 or 5 important numbers on those.
Yeah.
They made we sat with them and they made it, and that worked beautifully. Everybody, we flooded the city with these cards everywhere. The police had them, all these services, all the doctor's office, nail salons, everywhere in town had these cards, and it was great. So
I love that.
so now we're going to do it here, but we're starting to do it in other places, and
Yeah.
it's so easy.
That's
It's
good.
simple.
I'm sure we'll connect and talk.
Great. But if you're looking for the fundraiser, I've had that person fundraise for you around that stuff. She is a former CTV broadcaster who's retired and she that's the kind of stuff she's wanted to do. Yes, give me your card. Phenomenal.
30-second rule.
But yeah, you know what I mean, whatever.
It looks like it's shade.
They're coming. I think the girls might be just at their tables, but yeah, that's great, Chantel. Thank you. We'll bring them in, and the tables, they'll leave this table set up for afterwards for a little bit if you still want to go out and talk to either victim services or the police or my team. Just trying to figure out what we're doing or whatever. You're more than welcome to do that, and so we're just going to wait for the team to come in. They probably chatting with someone and can't get away. That's my guess. But you guys did fantastic. Like 15 minutes was probably a little bit unreasonable to say, go get a snack and come back, visit the tables. But I mean, we did it in 23 minutes. So you did fantastic. Because if I want you back in a half an hour, I probably should tell you 15. If I'd have gave you 30 minutes, you probably would have took 45. A statement that stood out to me years ago, and I think it was Constable Steph that mentioned it tonight, is that drugs can be sold once, but a girl can be sold many times. And I can hardly say that without getting emotional, knowing that there are girls being sold many times throughout the day. And so that's just a little piece of my heart. I'm going to ask Nick and Steph if they would come back because they just love being up here so much. And if they want to come back up and find a stool. And yeah, can you what? Sit down? Oh, I thought you want to sit back down. I was like, no, you can't.
So I just wanted to touch base and just say, obviously some of the information we talked about here tonight might be the first time hearing it. There could be some words that are very triggering. It could be bothersome. So if at any time that you feel that you need to talk or you need someone to talk to, feel free to come and see us at the end, and we can definitely set you up with some supports if you need it. Okay?
And what stands out to me, and someone else mentioned it to me as well, is the authenticity of this group, because they work well together and you can see that. It's not forced, it's not put on, but they work well together, and that's what makes them a great team. Does anybody have any questions that they would like to ask? If you do, you come to the mic or you can pass us a slip of paper. Because here's what can happen. We can be dismissing in 8 minutes, or we can have a little question and answer period. Does anybody have anything that you would like to ask? Can you come to the mic, please? Oh, I got one. That's fine, though. You can stand. No, you do, and then she'll go. That's fine.
I actually have a couple of questions. Oh, it's not on? Where's the...
She should be up by the side.
Surge, turn it up. I thought I was, there. Now you're turning it up. How do you differentiate between sex trafficking and prostitution? Because I worked in Victoria with Street Church, and we were on the street talking to a lot of prostitutes. Is it an elevated prostitution, do you find?
It's on. Okay, so we do have a lot of females that are working independent and they're prostituting. But as soon as someone else takes money for that, or is threatening them, or is asking to do something, there's some form of threat or some form of manipulation in there, then it becomes trafficking. So if they have to report back to somebody, or they have to give somebody something, or they have to do it because they feel threatened, then it's human trafficking.
Is that not the same as prostitution, though?
No,
a
because
lot of-
sometimes women are allowed to sell their body.
but-
Prostitution is not illegal. You can sell your body. What's illegal is to buy the sex. So the Johns can get arrested, but the victims are not getting arrested. They're allowed to sell their body.
I was thinking more along the lines of the pimp overlording it, though, because the women that we talked to,
Yep.
a lot of times they didn't even want to come off the street because they were afraid of being beaten up by their pimps.
Absolutely.
And the same process, they would be without food, they'd be without,
Yep.
there's a lot of similarities.
Absolutely.
The other question I want to ask is, how did you get involved? Are you the only one on the force that's doing this? Like, how did you, like, what?
Yep.
Yeah.
Because you've been here for, you said 18 years?
Yes.
So,
Before we had 2 officers that if there was any human trafficking cases that came in, that they would be assigned it. And then 2 years ago, I was like, okay, it's not happening. We need to go out and find it. Like, we need to do more stuff. They're not going to come to us. We need to go to them. So then that's when I started doing it. And now our service has actually just put out a posting for a human trafficking officer because I'm doing domestic violence, I'm doing human trafficking, and I'm doing major crime. And I can tell you, I cannot put the effort in that I want to put into the human trafficking doing all the other jobs. So they have just created a position. I applied for the position. So fingers
you'll get
crossed.
it.
So fingers crossed. And then I can target more. I can do some more projects. I can get out there. I can show face. And I can actively go out and seek victims of human trafficking.
because you said there was 132
Over.
cases?
No,
Over.
we had 32 incidents created. So what happens is anytime we deal with somebody, we generate an incident number. There was 32 incident numbers created for human trafficking. But we've helped over 130 girls in the last 3 years. So whether they're coming in and they just want treatment, or whether they just need out of the game for a couple days, or whatever it is, over 130 of them have come forward.
So you were saying through victim services, there's only 2 caseworkers that stay indoors? And there's only you out on the street?
No, all our officers are trained. I've trained all the officers. It's just if they come across a case, most times they'll contact me to
Yeah.
come and deal with it, just because I know the ins and outs.
That's
And I'm there
amazing.
to support. So I answer my phone at 2 o'clock in the morning. I answer my phone at 3 o'clock in the morning, where most people aren't going to do that.
Right.
And Chantel tells me all the time, work-life balance. But I'm going to tell you, the reason I do this is because of there was one victim that I helped. I'm going to try not to get emotional. But there was one victim that I helped. And she, right from the get-go, she just won over my heart. She was amazing. I knew she could do this. I knew she was a fighter. It took 5 incidents. I met her. She got back in the game. She contacted me again. I need out. Okay. A week later, she's back in the game. Anyways, the 5th time was on my birthday. She called me and said, I'm in the basement. I need help. They got guns. I need to get out. I was like, that's fine. It was New Year's Eve. I'm a New Year's Eve baby. And I said, get out. I have somebody that's going to show up in an unmarked, and I'll meet you at the station. Met her at the station, and she's been clean since. It's been 2 years. She's living an amazing life. She has a little one.
Excellent.
And I absolutely love her, and she's just amazing. So if I can just help one more or whatever, it just...
Well, it
it's
certainly
amazing.
does need to be applauded, all
Yeah.
of you guys.
But she needs to be. This was all her. She keeps saying thank you to me, but it's all her. They have to put the work in, so...
I have a few questions. Can you be bought? I'm just picking on you. What about boys? My question was, you talked a lot about young ladies, but you didn't talk about boys. The missions that sometimes we're offered opportunity to support internationally, there's boys and girls. So is there boys around here that are being...
Absolutely. We just don't see them coming forward as often. And I can tell you I haven't worked on a case
Okay.
where it's been male. So a male victim. I have not yet. Not to say it's not happening, because just today someone asked me, just today, we had this conversation today in Victim Services office saying, I got information that this boy is being sold. So I said, okay, let's try and get more details. Let's try and find the name so I can at least do some surveillance and see what I can get from it. So
Yeah.
it's not that it's not happening. we're just going on what we see mostly every day. But
Yeah.
it definitely is happening.
And a quick question, do you utilize the Children's Treatment Center for,
Absolutely.
do you call upon them as an agency for help?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of our child
Depending on the
victims.
age.
Pardon?
Depending on the age. eh?
Yeah, so it has to be children or youth, but yeah, for sure, we're definitely calling them, and especially our joint partnership with Koala Place. So they're the Youth Advocacy Center. They're referring to these kind of agencies almost every day. So
Yeah.
as soon as we get a child, that's where we're going for sure. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And
You're
one
welcome.
more question. I had 3, so here's the last one. I can have 4? No, the last one is, I was blessed to be able to be on a mission trip with the Bible College last year in Hamilton. Usually we go overseas, but we didn't because of COVID. And I saw so many cases of that on the streets, and you call them the Johns, but I still see the image of the one that was dressed in a long black dress, I think sadly stoned, but you could tell that he had more than a hold on her. And it's the saddest thing to see that and not being able to do, we couldn't even approach her to pray with her or give her a sandwich or anything. And so thank you for being there and doing what you do and helping
you.
the world, God's
you.
people.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. Thank you for the presentation. I live downtown, and I've recently found out that we live we live a few doors down from a trafficking den, and I have an 11-year-old girl who scares me that fits into that sort of target. I guess my question is, what can I do as a parent to kind of assess risk, and what do I talk to my child about so that she doesn't end up in this kind of situation?
So consent. Obviously, social media. Make sure that all the safety is on their social media. Parent control, anything like that. Let them know that what is a healthy relationship and a non-healthy relationship. That's the biggest thing, because a lot of times it's a non-healthy relationship that they're getting in, and identify those cues. If you see something happening, point it out. A lot of people are so afraid to say something, and then that's where it just continues on and gets worse and gets worse. Point it out and say it, because they won't realize it until you actually say it out loud.
Okay. And then...
and in regards to that house, if you want to send me an email and give me the address, or we can chat after.
Y'all know about it.
Yeah, I'm sure I do.
but I'll tell you again. Another question that I had was, as a community, because we know what you do, but what can we do to help kind of support your agencies in trying to get the bad people?
Well, really, if what
Or
you can
help
do to
the
help
women.
is, if you suspect someone or you see someone, call. Even if it's Crime Stoppers and you want to remain anonymous, call. Because I look at all the Crime Stoppers tips that have anything to do with human trafficking, and I pull from them, and then I try and show face to the people that they're identifying. So whatever.
What's sort of, I know this is a tough question for you to answer, but in cases where you know that there's human trafficking happening, what's your sort of success rate?
It's not great.
In like helping,
Yeah.
in helping the women, but also in putting away the people who are
Not
running
great.
these dens.
So most times, after we get them the help and the treatment and everything, most times they don't want to go through trial, because the trial's going to happen 2 years down the road, and then they got to be traumatized all over again. So the ones that are strong and want to fight and go through it, I'm all for it. Let's do it. And we've in the last 2 years, we have had 3 traffickers convicted here in Cornwall, but a lot of times no. And really, at the end game, let's just keep them safe. So, and that's what let's get them out of the game and get them safe. But yeah, if we do get a strong one and they want to go all the way, then let's do it. So, but yeah, as a community, if we see it, don't ignore it. Identify it. We do have a human trafficking task force in Cornwall, SDG&A, and it's all the communities, all the agencies that come together, and we talk about it and say how we can implement and how we can help each other, and so on and so forth.
So who do we actually call? Like, are we calling 911? If
No,
we see
you can
something?
call Crime Stoppers. You guys,
Okay.
my cards are out there. You can take my card. You can send me an email. You can send me a text. My phone number's on there. My phone's always on.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Also, how you can just educate yourself, right? Be here. Learn about what it is, learn the signs and stuff like that. That's how you can help us, is to be here and to learn, right? Because a lot of people just don't know what's going on. So then if you're here, you're learning about it and you can help us in the end of the day. And there's also resources online for you to access to help talk to your children, especially like there's like Pleo, things like that. If you want to take my card, I can email you some resources for sure.
And also, like I say, email me or call me, but you can call victim services. I don't want this. You can call victim services and let them know. And again, if they don't want to come forward to the police, they don't have to. As long as there's no children in danger, they can remain a victim and get the assistance they need through victim services. They don't have to come forward to me. But my speech to them, first thing is we don't have to go through the criminal process. The difference is between human trafficking and domestic. Sometimes they think they're their boyfriend, so it becomes domestic, so we have to juggle it and assess it. In domestic situations, we have no choice. If there's an allegation, we have to lay a charge. It's a shall. Where in human trafficking, they can remain a victim if they choose to be, if it's just a trafficker and he's not actually a boyfriend. So if they want to remain a victim and don't want to go through the court process, we don't have to.
Okay. Thank you very
Does everyone
much.
understand that?
Yeah.
Okay, so I have 3 questions. So the first one would be, as a church community, is there anything that we can do? Like I was listening to when you talked about needing safe places and you could accommodate. I did the math. At $150 a night, we're looking at 14 days. And so that's not very long. Is there any kind of programs that you guys have considered where you may have a family in the community that would sign up to be a volunteer home to support some of the victims? Is that something that we can?
I would say no with human trafficking, but it would be amazing. But I think the risk, depending on the situation, would far outweigh, you know what I mean? But it would be amazing.
Yeah, so the risk in regards to the risk for the trafficker finding them, the risk that they're still in the game so they're going to steal from you, the risk that they're going to use in your place and they might overdose, the risk that they're going to have a mental health breakdown. Like these are all the risks that we find when we bring them to Maison Interlude and Maison Baldwin. What we need is we need more buildings and more shelters for victims of human trafficking.
That's
so,
huge,
yeah.
I know that this church, I believe the members have raised, they did like a donation drive the whole month of, I can't remember what month it is, but they got us underwear and bras. So they had like a bin at the end of the thing and there was underwear and bras. And victims of human trafficking will appreciate a new bra and a new pair of underwear very much, right? It's like a new,
So
it's them, they're
clothing
clean.
donations,
Yeah, clothing,
maybe,
gift cards for
any
like
of that stuff that's in the kit?
anything
can
like
donate
that.
it to you, or
Yeah,
who do
yeah.
we give it to?
Either of us,
All 3 of you.
it'll be this. It'll go to the same people. So, but yeah, gift cards. Like we give a lot of Giant Tiger gift cards, things like that. Tim Hortons gift card. I know you just gave somebody like they had no food. Tim Hortons, right? What else?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
For
So
sure.
clothes, things like that.
Okay.
Yeah. So those kind of things are really helpful. But yeah,
Awesome.
transitional housing, that would be.
What about like in crisis moments? You talked about 2 o'clock in the morning. So I know in some cases with victims, there have been some volunteers that you guys have taken on in the past. Is that an option?
So I was going to talk about that. I know some of you have come to talk to me. So I will give you can take my card or this little brochure thing. Actually, take my card. My address is not on here, my email address. Oh, you can take it and email it and I will answer you. But anyways, yeah, we are accepting volunteers. So right now we are in desperate need for volunteers. We do not have enough. And sometimes, whenever our staff gets burnt out because we don't have any volunteers to call on and our staff is going after hours on the weekends. And Chantel's looking at me because she really likes us to have a work-life balance, like Steph said. But yeah, so individuals who are able to go on scene and help with crisis intervention, things like that, do errands for us, right? We had our favorite volunteer on Monday go and drop off some cell phones and like Van Cleef Heel, things like that, errands, pick up gift cards for us. So anything we can get you to kind of be involved. But yeah, we're actually going to be getting on new volunteers like shortly. Yeah, so it's actually quite a comprehensive training. We don't just put out anybody out on the street because obviously it is quite traumatizing. So there's a 40-hour or a 20-hour kind of like online, depending how slow you are. It took me a long time to go through it. Online training. And then there's a 2-day training in person that I will be facilitating just to train volunteers. And then after that, we do a lot of we do an interview, we do criminal background checks, references. Not just Billy Joe can come and be volunteer with us just because of the kind of situation we're dealing with. They have to be over 18. You need a car. You need to commit to 30 hours a month. But it doesn't mean we're going to use you for 30 hours a month, right? We just need people available so that when we're getting those random calls at 2 a.m., at 5 p.m., we can call upon you people because it is very, very helpful. To us. It relieves a lot of stress from us. So, and I know if Steph calls, if we have a volunteer, it's really helpful because she's going and getting them food and clothing this weekend when she's trying to spend time with her family too. So she needs to learn.
For sure. Awesome.
Yeah.
The next question I wanted to ask was, oh shoot, I'm trying to think. So in terms of referral services and counseling, do you have a list of approved agencies? Do you ever recommend Christian counseling? If there were Christian counseling services available and you had a Christian client?
Yeah, for sure. So we obviously try to match them up with the best counselor. We have a list of approved VQRP counselors.
Who approves it?
The VQRP kind of system, so the Ontario government, and then it'll be filtered through the agency, so me right now. So I'm getting resumes, I'm getting making sure they're all qualified, things like that. And then I'm sending them off to the VQRP representative in Toronto, and they're approving them. So they have